It's done. I guess you're kind of wondering what cool Spanish-like music and sideways sock monkeys means. It doesn't really mean anything. The sideways is because I had the camera turned wrong, and the sock monkey was just to get your attention. But now that I have it, we're going to talk about something really, 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 really cool. Do you like music? I like music. And I'm going to tell you about a really, really cool musical style that was very influential at a certain part in our world's history. Why am I doing this? Well, for one, my professor in a world history class at St. Joseph's College asked me to. And when your professor asks you to do something, you should do it. Wink, wink. But more than that, I'm kind of a connoisseur of music, and I'm not talking just goofy pop songs that you might download tomorrow on iTunes. I like to look at musical genres that actually meant something in history. And that's what we're going to look at today. But before we do that, let's think about some musical genres that actually meant something in other parts of history. How about the music of the 60s? Peace, love, and rock and roll. Grunge music. Hell, even the Occupy Wall Streeters are singing stuff. We are 99% of the sock monkeys. Let's, however, get down to the brass tacks of the matter. And that is, today we're going to talk about a musical style called the Zarzuela. A zarzuela is a Spanish-style dramatic play that includes spoken word and operatic components. The first zarzuela was a comedy by Pedro Calderón de la Vaca in 1657. One of the most famous zarzuelas was the Pan y Toros, which was first performed in 1864 in the city of Madrid, Spain. This zarzuela was a combination of classical opera and slapstick humor via song. So, what was so cool about this musical genre? I told you that the most famous zarzuela was actually in the 1800s, but the zarzuela as a musical genre actually has its roots back to the early 1700s. And what you have to do is think about in the early 1700s in Spain, the musical landscape was actually more controlled by the Italians. Italy had a huge influence on Spanish opera. Their zarzuela ended up being a response to that. So what's really important to remember is in the late 1700s, Italian opera made their zarzuela musical genre not so cool. This is why we need to remember that the golden age of the zarzuela was actually the second part of the 19th century. But let's go back and talk about the early happenings. We have to remember that in the early days there was still a divide between Italian opera and their zarzuela genre. By the 18th century, Italian opera had basically pushed the zarzuela genre into two smaller venues that were not as large as what we were seeing in the Italian operas. Our history is full of conquests, and this could be called a musical conquest of sorts. But like many rebellions, there was a movement, and the movement of the zarzuela came out of the energy of the city of Madrid. And therefore, in the 19th century, the zarzuela returned in full force as a very distinct Spanish musical genre. And the 20th century saw the zarzuela expand with composers paying homage to those original Spaniards who brought the musical genre back. A testament to the long-standing influence of the zarzuela is that even while Spain suffered its most recent civil war, the zarzuela maintained itself as an expression of Spanish society and culture. Why are such musical forms as our zarzuela unique, and why are they important to study? So, why are such musical genres important? Why are they historically relevant? Well, here's my contention. You can look throughout history, and you can find chunks of time that were defined by the culture, by activities, by governments, by rebellions, by conquering, etc., etc., etc. But if you look hard enough, usually music has something to do and is an easily identifiable portion of the society. For instance, when we think of the 60s and 70s, we think of the music, we think of Woodstock. In this case, you can look at a 400-year period where you have essentially a musical form that is basically ruled by the Italian opera scene, but the Spanish actually responded with a type of music of their own. There's Zarzuela. Even though Italian opera eventually put it down and made it smaller, the response is to change it. It evolves. It follows through history. And even as Spanish culture goes through a civil war, you still see Spanish opera paying homage to a musical genre that was so important hundreds of years ago. And I think this is important. I think this is the point behind this video. I ask you this. As you think about such musical genres, think about the music you like. For instance, I grew up during a time when bands like Nirvana and grunge music were all the hits. I wonder whether 400 years from now, we'll be taking a look at that genre of music and making it relevant in the society 400 years from now, the way that the Zarzuela is being treated today. Thanks for watching. This is Don, St. Joseph's College of Maine, World History and World Civilization. Signing out.